The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hello, and help me welcome Allison Dyer, a political activist and potential candidate for the Board of Education.
Yes.
So how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Okay. What do you think needs to be done with the Board of Education if you're going to run for that?
Yep, that's my plan, to run for the Nashua Board of Education. And I think, especially after this year with everything that's gone on, and people have been home and really starting to pay attention, especially the longer that the kids were out of school. Mm-hmm. It was kind of like all the parents, like, what's going on? Like, what, are we going back? Are we like, so everyone started to kind of pay attention. And it kind of led us on this journey here to, try to see some changes in the school board. Spending is one of them. Mm-hmm. For example, there was an issue this year with Chromebooks that were ordered for the kids that didn't have them. And to date, we haven't seen them. I believe
Really?
They were ordered. Yeah, I believe they were ordered in either July or August.
Yeah.
And they have, I'm not sure if they've arrived and they're sitting in IT waiting for programming, or if they have not arrived at this point. I do know in their most recent budget that a couple of the additions in there were for more Chromebooks because they did not have enough. So I think the spending is one thing. The vendor contracts that are used, there seems to have been issue as of late on the school board about contracts going out for bid. And Paula Johnson, who I appreciate a lot, will bring that up, and it kind of seems to get not dismissed, but it doesn't really seem to be a factor. So I think that's important to put them out for the 3 bids, and it also helps us locally to give more opportunity to these different vendors to provide services.
Well, they still have a person that's supposedly in charge of the financial part of it, right? I mean,
yes.
He's the one that has to keep it on schedule.
Yes. Most of the documents and things like that, I believe is it Dan Donovan? I believe who does that.
I think that's who it is.
Are available. But again, I feel like there could be more transparency there. And I feel like the board could work together better. It seems to be a little lopsided. And I would just like to restore some balance to it. Have some more discussions and thought-provoking types of, avenues.
It's the organization that's really not lined up to operate as well as it could. I
think a lot of parents in this particular climate right now feel like what the board aligns with is not what aligns best with their children. Mm-hmm. And that's a real hard stop for a lot of parents. It's about the kids. And as a mom, when I feel like my child is being short-sighted or what I think would be best isn't there, I want to find all those options and I want to change that. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of, led me to my journey of wanting to run for school board.
Have you looked into other schools? Are you that unsatisfied?
I think I love where my daughter goes to school now. I would love it even more if she was going to school there now. Yeah. But I think a lot of parents have looked at other schools at this point. Now we're running into that issue where the enrollment is you're on a wait list. I mean, St. Christopher's in Nashua has been open all year, and I know that there were no spots left in the grade my daughter would be in, and a couple of other friends who had tried to get in there as well. No spots because
I know when that other Catholic school closed down and they merged there, it's probably made it tougher.
Yeah.
I've heard good things about the school, but I was thinking about some of the other charter schools that might be acceptable to you.
So I believe like World Academy is not a charter school; it's a private school. But I also know that the enrollment there is full, and I mean, that's an expensive school. So I mean, people are just trying to make it work.
Sure.
And I can't tell you how many parents over the course of this last year that I've spoken with on a weekly basis who are just so distraught. They take this onto themselves. They feel like this is their fault. Like I can work, I can keep the lights on, I can keep food in the house, but I cannot afford to send my child anywhere but where they're going right now, and
Sure.
I'm stuck.
Well, you're paying taxes on that. You ought to get something for it that's working.
Yeah, and I mean, everyone got their tax bills this year, and they saw the increase. I think it was it 15 for the school, $15 increase for the schools, and then 22 for the
I don't remember
land.
the
I think
numbers.
I know off the top of my head. I might have switched it. It might be 15. It might be 22. But I mean, that equated for a lot of people
Sure.
to be $200-300
Right.
more, and the schools were closed all this year. So I think a lot of people, as Nashua taxpayers, felt like, why did my taxes go up if the schools were closed? And I mean, the schools still have to run and things of that nature.
They're
But
losing people, a number of people that teaching too.
yes, and I've always felt, I have a soft spot in my heart for teachers because I had such good teachers. I mean, I am from here. I went to school here, and I was brought up to be a critical thinker and to be, brave. And I feel like that's what I'm doing here now because of the good education that I got here.
Sure.
So to see this kind of pushback, to not open the schools, or, we keep hearing this word, like it has to be safe. It has to be safe. And even with all the guidance, even the school board itself admitted that they probably dropped the ball early in the year by not opening up and waiting, because then we hit the winter time, which is sick time, and our numbers went up, and they were not willing to open then. They maybe should have opened in the nicer weather months, and they said they dropped the ball on that. And that was hard for a lot of parents to hear.
Well, have you looked at the school operation? How long has your child been in school?
So she's going to go into the second grade.
Oh, okay.
So she hasn't been too long. But this, I mean, like I said, I'm from here. So I think about all the kids. I think about us as a community. So like my fight isn't just because I got angry because of my child. I kept thinking about, all the kids that maybe didn't have someone as vocal as myself. And again, after being involved in a parents group, and then Alicia Houston and myself started the Nashua Residents for Responsible Government group. The amount of people that I talk to on a weekly basis who are just beside themselves on a range of issues. And really it comes down to the kids. And I felt like, okay, I have a voice, and I don't really have an issue with standing behind the things that I feel and that I say. So like, let me help these people who just can't dig themselves out.
Well, I believe that's a good way of doing it. But the reason I asked the question was, over the last few years, I think the schools have been gone down because of the leadership that was there. The superintendent, I don't think, worked well with the Board of Education. And when that happens, in fact, the one before him didn't work well, and the one before, so we had three ones that didn't work well. I know there's an article in one of the newspapers recently that went through that history. Are you familiar with what's happened with the schools? Because I think they've gone downhill since the last several years.
No, I would agree. And as you said, there was clear divide between the superintendents and the Board of Education. And I think a lot of people now feel like there's a divide between the superintendents, the Board of Education, and the Nashua Teachers Union.
Yeah.
So there's like three separate entities that cannot, for some reason, work cohesively. I believe in the previous superintendent's letter of resignation, he said he could not work with this Board of Education. And I mean, that's hard to hear, because a superintendent, as you stated, is a leader, and they need to be a cohesive unit. They need to work with the teachers union to get the best teachers, and they need to work with the Board of Education to get the best policies across, and plans, and budgets, and equipment, and things
Right.
of that nature. And like you said, I think that the superintendent previously, and then the two before that, basically just stayed their contract, and then they were gone. And I think that was more contractually obligated than it was like, I found something to move on to. It was like they wanted to get out of here. And that's really sad to see, because again, I'm from here. I loved going to school here, and I want that for this community again. And right now we have an interim superintendent, Dr. McKinney, and he's worked in the district for a long time, and he seems to have kind of, moved into this interim role and tried to do the best with it. I mean, I think because he's been a player in the game for a little while, he's been here, he knows the board, he knows the teachers union, he knows the schools, that he's doing okay. I'd like to see him be a little bit stronger, but I think there's that limbo where they're still searching outside for another candidate.
Yeah.
But I'm sure he's applied internally. I think they did mention that. But that he's in that limbo where it's like, if he gets too strong, does he not get the job that they seek outside? And they did ask us as the public for our thoughts on a new superintendent and what was important to us. And it was a terrible survey. And I'll just say it now. It was terrible. It had nothing to do with, the majority of people I spoke with felt the same, that they were like, it doesn't have anything to do with what we want to see in a superintendent. And it makes no mention of like, is there someone already working in the district that you feel like would be a good candidate?
Well, I think that article I mentioned said something like to that effect, that it might, the last satisfactory one that they had was one that had been here and worked his way through the organization and got up to the speech superintendent.
Yep.
And I think the same thing on a survey that the last superintendent ran a couple of years ago was said, things were said about that not being very oriented to what really we're looking for.
Yeah, and even I think that the Nashua School District needs to hire someone to do their surveys, because they seem to miss a lot of what. That maybe it's just that they're out of touch with what the people of this community would want to see or need or want to express. I mean, a lot of parents had issue with the surveys that were sent out for remote learning. I mean, they only gave 2 options, and they didn't give you a place for a comment. They didn't, and they were tracking you down if you didn't fill it out. Like, what do you want to do for your child? And I know a lot of people responded with, you did not list a full-time in-person option. That's what I want. So when the survey results came out, they said, 55% wanted in-person learning of some sort, and 44% did not. From my understanding and my speaking with, members of the community, a lot of them just picked the remote only option because the 2 days for 4 hours a day was not accommodable. They were like, I can't, I basically would have to wait in the parking lot for them, and me trying to work, and they were all saying it wasn't, they would have picked the other option if it wasn't 2 days for 4 hours. So, but now the governor, as you I'm sure are aware, mandated the 5 days of in-person learning. So I haven't heard any buzz yet if they plan to submit a waiver of any kind.
Well, I guess a couple places have said that they.
I did hear Manchester, but and maybe Concord, I read, but I haven't heard any buzz about that. And Dr. McKinney did send out a survey to ask you what you wanted. And I think that because finally on this survey it said, do you want full in-time school, even if your child cannot have the teacher that they want? And the majority of people I spoke with over the last week since that came out were like, I just want them to be in school. If they don't have their teacher, they have a different teacher.
I think something on, whether it was today's morning news or something, said the Department of Education's waiting to hear back from the Attorney General whether there'll be any penalties.
Oh, to not open?
Okay. So that's going to be interesting too. But I think you're right. You should be ready. They should have planned for something like this. So not that difficult to switch over to some full day.
I think what you said before, though, Carl, is right, that because of the leadership that was there previously, I mean, there were a lot of comments made about the previous superintendent having been looking for a job most of the summer.
Oh, yeah.
So how much was a plan being worked on? You know what I mean? And they did have a plan, albeit, again, it did not involve any much for in-person or things of that nature. And then the couple of members who kept voting to have, like, let's implement the plan, like, let's do hybrid, like, let's get this going, kept getting voted down. And a lot of it was based on numbers and then the metrics in the city. And many board meetings, we had the director of public health there to give a presentation to say, these metrics are still too high. And a couple of the board members received a lot of blowback for saying things like, well, kids don't transmit coronavirus and things of that nature. But that's not the case. I mean, we do know that kids do transmit the coronavirus and things of that nature, but they are less affected for the most part overall because kids tend to be healthier and they're younger. And immunity systems are a great thing. So, that kept getting shot down. And again, because of the previous superintendent trying to head his way out the door, and then our board having, there's no better way to say it than a super majority, and then just a couple of outliers there kept getting voted down. And every board meeting, the groups and the parents and everything would just blow up, like, what, like, why is this happening? Like, what can we do to not have this happen again? And that's kind of where my journey's led me, and with Alicia as well, that we don't want this to happen again. And they're already making steps to, in the last board meeting, maybe not this last one, the one before that, they were trying to write in policy clause for communicable diseases. Like, so if something happens again, but communicable diseases could be a lot of things. Right. Unfortunately, like head lice, strep throat, you know what I mean? Sure. So if they're already attempting to write in there these clauses to do something like this again, like, I want to get in there and I want to keep people safe. It's not about that, but I want a better way to do this than what we just went through.
Have you and your group looked at other schools around here and looked how they are handling their problems? So
a lot of what our early work was to try to present the Board of Education the other schools around us that had made these plans and implemented these plans, schools in our own city, for example,
even
presentation to merit, right? Even the private schools, we had put together numerous plans, like look at what Hudson's doing, or look at what Amherst is doing, and the general consensus was back to us was that Nashua's a larger school district. Like, you're comparing the wrong things, but then we would bring up the survey, which says like, but half of these people don't want to be in school. So we're already lowering the population of children that would be in the school. Right. But it kept being that same thing. Don't compare us to, we're the largest school district, besides Manchester. So we kept hitting that wall. But we must have made, 4 or 5 like very detailed plans to present, and we did present them, and that was what we were met with. So.
Well, I'm glad you got around to that, because I tell you, I interviewed the former superintendent 2 years ago. And when I asked him the same questions, he says, why? I know what we should do. So you can see what happens when you have somebody that's so fixated on he knows everything.
Right, he knows best. It's just, I think that's an important part of local government to begin with, though, is to work with your the people that essentially touch us. Hudson is a stone's throw, Litchfield, Londonderry, Hollis. Why wouldn't we try to be cohesive as a whole anyway? So I think that's an important part of local government that we seem to be missing.
You'll find out more as you get into the politics of New Hampshire that Manchester and Nashua think isolated. They don't think they can learn anything from anybody else.
I am hoping, I can agree with that. I'm hoping that things like, there's a lot of talk always about, like, especially in the national budget, it was like the medical costs are going up, right? So now we're seeing all these mergers of hospital systems all around the place, right? So, for example, Southern Hampshire Medical Center merged with Elliott Hospital to become a Solution Health. That's Nashua and Manchester. So if we're going to start sharing things of that nature, maybe we can stop acting so isolated. If we're going to share doctors in Manchester and Nashua, we're going to share patients and beds, and we're going to be cohesive in that way, then maybe Nashua and Manchester can stop acting like they're the only big cities here just because of population size, because I think it's important.
Maybe there's buying things, and so you get some kind of discounts if you're buying a larger quantity. But Manchester's running into the same kind of organizational problems, I think, there. So if they can't even work by themselves, how are they going to? I like your idea. I think they should, and I think you go to some of the charter schools where we have to work with a very tight budget. I don't think people realize that these people don't get any of the benefits that they have to pay taxes.
Correct.
Which our schools don't have to pay taxes. They don't. They have to pay for the rent of the facility and all the things like that, and they still make it go.
Right, and again, utilizing resources like charter schools are public schools too. So why wouldn't we here in Nashua utilize some of the space, to help the charter schools? I mean, I've always been a big believer that competition is a good thing, and it brings about, the best in people. So why would we cut that off as an option for families that are struggling or families that want something different? I mean, education for each individual is not a one size fits all. And we kind of stopped looking at it that way. We're like, this is your option, and like, that's it, like, make it work. And now I think we're realizing that there are things that we can do to make it work better. And we have to try. I have to try.
And you work together. You pick up little bits of information that works on one place. You might want to try it.
Exactly.
Have you been to the the science charter school in Nashua?
No.
You ought to go there. I've been there a couple times. I'm very impressed with it. Now they've got a big building. I don't know how many kids they have, but they have quite a few.
What is the name of that one? Do you remember?
It's on Amherst Street.
Okay.
And it's halfway to almost.
It's across from like Georgia's, right?
No, I don't think it's that far.
Okay.
I think it's up closer.
Okay.
Okay. I think, let's see, well, anyway, I've been there. The kids really love it.
I would imagine.
And they're doing things that I was even doing in college.
I mean, I can imagine. My nephew goes to St. Christopher's School, and they do similar science type projects where they'll take the kids out of the school, they'll walk over to Sargent Park, and they'll do like science experiments outside and do things of that nature. I mean, not that public schools don't offer those types of things, but right now where public schools still aren't fully open, I mean, my nephew's been able to do those types of things this entire year. And in New Hampshire, like you said, the charter schools, they don't get a lot of help. In New Hampshire, I think we're on the lower scale of charitable donations, period. So, charter schools or religious schools and things of that nature, they don't get a lot of help. But they manage to do it. And I think that model is a great idea for public schools wanting to do more.
I think the parents, too, get to be more involved, too, in those schools.
Yes.
Because they know they have to be, and they know to make it work. They want to be.
Yeah. And I think that's, again, one thing about this entire year is that parents have really figured out what works for them, what doesn't work for them, meaning what works best for their child and their learning style. And it has, enabled a lot of parents to think about doing homeschooling. I mean, I know at least 4 or 5 parents off the top of my head that after a few months, they're like, you know what, I'm going to buy the books. I'm going to start a portfolio. I'm going to homeschool because I don't think we're going back. And my child doesn't learn this way.
Yeah.
And I have figured out how my child learns, and that's what I want to do.
Well, I appreciate what you're saying because I have a daughter who has a 9-year-old, and she's down in Chelmsford, Massachusetts, which is a good school district because they all my children went through the school system there, and they did well in college and everything. And this remote learning is not working, and she's thinking the same way, but she has a business on the side. So how are you going to do that?
Well, that's created pods where maybe a stay-at-home mom has decided to take on a few other kids and do these types of, homeschooling. It's really shown the light on what.
Well, one of the neighborhood moms is doing something like that.
Yes.
Just for kids that are in the 3rd, 4th, 5th grade type of thing. So it is interesting. Some people adopt, and I think you have to do it here. And if you could convince people to change a little bit, open their minds, I think you might have some good solutions. And then you can work on the city.
Yes. Yes.
You'll have to come back when you have ideas what we can do to keep the city fiscally operative.
I would love to. Spending cap. Spending cap.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. They need to do. They have that, and that's a legal little situation that threw it out. But I think people are trying to put it back in place.
Yes.
Okay. Good. Nice talking to you, but we've run out of money. We've run out of. I'm thinking about the money the town might be running out of. But anyway, we'll have you back, and we look for Alicia to come along and see what things you people are doing. Keep us in mind when you want to have some more.
I absolutely will. It's a great platform to try to be able to reach people. I myself, I've always been a registered independent, but I think we need to garner that middle ground and get my Republicans and maybe sway some Democrats too. So I think we can do a lot of great things.
So there are a lot of people that make sense. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.